Amnesty International has condemned the use of live ammunition on protesters. Last month, the organization called on the international community to stop delivering arms and military equipment to Israel. For more on this, we are joined by Shanila Mohammed, the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa. Shanila, thank you so much for coming through. The words you use in your statement are quite strong. You say the Israeli military used excessive force, and you say it's a violation of international law, and in some instances, you go as far as to say they committed what appears to be war crimes. What do you base this assessment on?
So, Tulis, thank you for having me on. So basically, we as Amnesty, Amnesty has been documenting the cases of violence against the Palestinians. And in particular, we've been documenting it since March the 30th, when the Great March began. And what we're seeing is something that is just unacceptable. I mean, Israel is violating all the Geneva Convention, the use of high-velocity ammunition, live ammunition, that is causing unbelievable damage to the people who are being shot. It goes against all, the international law, and they've been using this live ammunition on protesters that actually don't pose a great harm to them. So, Amnesty has talked to many people on the ground. We've talked to NGOs, we've talked to people, we've documented ourselves, and most of the people who have been shot, killed, or wounded are people who have either been shot in the back, or been shot in the legs, or been shot as they're walking away, or in the arms, or in the chest. And this is, and we really are calling on the International Criminal Court now to step up. I think the days of just condemnation, which is what usually happens, have got to stop now, and we've got to now start putting into concrete action. So for us, the International Criminal Court has got to step up. They've got to do their own investigation. Israel is in violation of the Geneva Convention and all other international conventions on this matter, and at the same time, they are, what is worrying us as Amnesty, that they seem to be deliberately and willfully inflicting injuries to cause long-term damage and paralysis to these people. So there seems to be a strategy in place, and I think the time is up now for us to just condemn. Action has to be taken. So
usually in situations of conflict, when there's been use of deadly force by statutory forces, the police, the army, the argument usually is that, it was warranted in the situation given the threat to civilian life, or perhaps to the lives of the statutory forces themselves. If that argument is being advanced in this particular case, what would you say? What is your observation on the side of the Palestinian protesters? So
our observation, Tulas, is that that argument does not hold. Yes, there have been some protesters who have thrown rocks and stones, and but the level of violence that is being perpetrated against those unarmed, mostly unarmed protesters is just disproportionate. And so I think that argument does not fly. And when you look at, and Médecins Sans Frontières, all the other organizations that Amnesty is working with on the ground there, when we look at the types of injury that the types of bullets that are being used are bullets that go into a person's body and literally fragment and destroy the tissue and the bone and everything around it. So and these are, majority of them are children. You're talking about children from the age of 14 to 17, as well as adults. But there is no evidence that we can find that shows that the level of force and brutality being used by the Israelis is justified under the circumstances.
All right, let's try and squeeze in two more issues. You mentioned the issue of the International Criminal Court. What are you calling on them to do? Because in many instances, cases come before the ICC as a result of a referral by a state that is, affected by this kind of violence. I don't foresee Israel doing this. Are you calling on the UN Security Council to perhaps commission this investigation?
Well, look, to be honest, we're very disappointed with the UN Security Council. I mean, it's not really stepping up. And I think, with the ICC, I mean, we're definitely calling on them, because we do need to use these, international organizations. But in 2014, they were supposed to have gone and looked at the effects of the blockade in the occupied territories. Until today, we haven't seen the outcome of that. So, as Amnesty, we are definitely calling on them to step up now and to really do what is right and what the court was set up for. But the other thing, Tulis, that we think is really critical is that, you know, countries that are supplying arms and weaponry to Israel.
Actually, that's where I wanted us to go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because part of the reaction we are seeing today comes from such countries as Britain. I saw something from Germany, you know, a statement that talks about the need to investigate exactly what happened. But these are the countries that you have identified in your previous statement as some of the countries that are supplying arms to Israel. What exactly is the nature of this arms embargo you are calling for, and what exactly are countries such as the US and the countries I just mentioned, including South Africa, supposed to do about it?
Well, what we're calling for is a complete embargo on all arms and weaponry to Israel. And in fact, when you were reading it, I was actually smiling when I saw the names of the UK and Germany calling for an investigation, because they are among the key countries that are supplying arms and weaponry to Israel. I mean, for example, the USA is supplying $38 billion worth of arms and weaponry to Israel over the next 10 years. So what we're saying is that, you know what, just calling for investigations when you are putting the weapons in the hands of these people who are now violating all international law and killing, you know, children and protesters who are really not armed at the same level is unacceptable. So, you know, they need to stop just calling for investigations and really put their money where their mouth is. And the one thing we're calling for is a complete arms embargo. Stop sending arms to Israel, and that is the only way that we're going to stop seeing this type of brutality that you know, is unfolding in front of our eyes. I mean, it's just unacceptable.
All right, thank you so much for coming through, Shanela Mohammed, who is the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa.